what our mission is here, the reason we're on rounds today, where we were on tables yesterday, is I'd really like to get, we've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tables, so we got even numbers. I'd really like to get 2 tables together, so we have a little more critical mass in groups. And maybe what we can do is do 2 stages, is we can do each individual table and then combine a couple of tables and then work from there. But I really want to focus on one thing that I've been bitching about for a while. I think, Amanda, you were laughing about that I was bitching at Estes Park and then at Disney, saying basically, hey guys, this is as good as it gets. And, you know, a lot of you are fat, dumb, and lazy because there's, you know, the economy's going as good as it possibly gets, everything else is going as good as it gets. If you're feeding off of 1 or 2 things, you've got to, right? I mean, I was bitching, but no, I didn't wish for us COVID. Say it again?
Yeah, you jinxed us.
Yeah. Well, Stephen last night was saying, I'm so happy the pandemic happened because I wouldn't have found you guys otherwise. It's like, you might want to think of how you phrase that. But it certainly panned out. But part of what happens is, again, to be a broken record, is Parthenon, meaning you've got to have 20 things going on every month to drive through traffic. And what we want to do is look at, in one way that we've become maybe a little lazy during the COVID period, is Facebook has been working so well, and Google has been working so well, that some of that Parthenon fell apart and it is missing, right? And the other piece of it is, I think we've each got to focus on multiple components, but different categories as well. So it's great to be driving the kind of traffic that Rachel and her team were driving from orientation days. However, they didn't drive that traffic last year, right? Year before, I think he did 80 enrollments in 6 weeks from them. But the year before that. But last year, they didn't have orientation days, right? So one is that they can fall apart. 2 is, if you run with the strategy that Amanda Olson ran with after our marketing boot camp in Golden, Colorado, which is publicity, PR, become a local celebrity in your area. It makes everything you're working, no matter what it is, work a heck of a lot better. If you're a local celebrity and walk into an elementary school, you're greeted like a celebrity. If you have a Facebook ad and they say, oh, I know them, I saw them ask their mom, that works better, right? Everything works better. You know, in Denver for years, we were running infomercials constantly. And 30-second spots, but the infomercial was like the bread and butter. And I couldn't go anywhere without people recognizing me, because it's that same video we still use. It features me, one thing or another. But I mean, it greased the skids. If I went into a lease negotiation, they're like, oh yeah, I've seen your show. You guys want to open here? Oh, fantastic. I mean, instead of being, oh, karate school, it was, oh yeah, we'd love to have my life. And in fact, I was, you know, I mean, it wasn't about celebritizing me. It should have been more probably. But they recognized the company and they recognized me. So when you look at the components of putting together that plan, a real component you should be focusing on is PR and publicity. Being on radio shows, being on TV shows, getting newspaper articles, and don't discount the value of newspapers. One is their distribution may be a shadow of former selves, but it's still really damn impressive when it's laminated on the wall, right? It's really impressive when it's in the notebook. It's really impressive when you've cloned it for the website, and you can still get a ton of calls from it for free, right? For free. This isn't buying an ad. So newspaper, radio, being a guest on TV shows, being in the newspapers, being in even the little local papers, and all the way down to, you know, you're featured in a local podcast, you're featured in a local blog, you're a guest contributor to the local groups, all the way down to that stuff, which is a pretty minor effect, all the way up to, you know, you're on the local news and getting the newspaper articles and stuff. The second category is, and what I don't think is much of a gap right now for, probably everybody in here over $500,000 is doing a pretty good job with Facebook. You're probably using link selling. You're doing a pretty good job with the website. You're probably using web marketing. Probably buying pay-per-click. But we're probably not doing as good a job as we could for really reaching out and doing community outreach. So you're probably not as tied into the local churches as you should be. You're probably not tied in as tightly with the HR department and the big companies around you as you could be. You're probably not a adjunct faculty for your local elementary schools like you should be. And some of you have done some component of that really well. Jan and Rachel have done a great job of being adjunct faculty in the local schools, and that's great. Amanda, you've done some of that. In fact, a lot of it this spring. So, but you really want to make sure that you have that as a big component, right? And then the other thing that I think really gets lost, which used to be the staple years ago, was actual media, paid offline advertising. And newspaper inserts still work. Marriage mail, especially that, they keep changing it. They changed the name again, that Retail Me. It went from Advo to Red Plum to Retail Me Not to Save On or something.
Something else.
It's like
Yeah.
Cap One now.
What's that?
It's like Capital One now.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's, there's the mailing.
Insert in the Wednesday.
Newspaper insert in the Wednesday paper usually hits the mailbox on Tuesday, and it's the food coupons. So it's the Domino's, grocery stores, Target. So usually it's Target, Walmart, Kroger, whatever local grocery store chain, Safeway, maybe some restaurants insert, but it's a marriage mail packet that shows up in the mail, but also is inserted into the newspapers. That works, and it still works. There's less newspapers going out, so less people getting the insert, but everybody who's not a subscriber, they mail it to them. So that works well. So one of the things I'd like to see is for everybody, especially as your revenue goes up, for you to have a bigger and bigger ad budget. I used to always insist that it was 15% of the gross, and in reality, we've driven so much traffic from community outreach activities, and we've gotten the cost per enrollment to be relatively low from Facebook and Google, that that number kind of went away. But what I will say is the bigger you get, the more likely you are to need a person who facilitates this community outreach. Greg has done that really well. And I did it in Denver all the way back to the 80s. I had for a long time, different people filling the role, but somebody who just did community outreach with the elementary schools. To set stuff, and that was all they did for across the multiple locations. So, number one, publicity. Number two is really getting better at the community outreach activities, but expanding it to mean corporations, working with the HR departments and so forth. Really expanded to be the churches. Those of you who have, mega churches in your area, one thing or another, more productive in Texas than in Seattle, but it's one of those that should be an outreach. In Denver, the big Jewish community center that had a school attached to one thing or another is one that we had great results with for many, many years, as an example. But really, the community outreach with organizations, everything from, my example was the $780 million electronic exchange that we had, like all the C-suite executives as students, down to, and including the pro football team, the pro basketball team, but also the HR department and the biggest employers in the area. Back then it was US West. But those are all things that I think most people, has anybody done a good job in that category outside of elementary schools? See, that's a huge missing opportunity. And then another missing opportunity, I think that's probably not happening much right now, is the co-promotional opportunities with Domino's, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Burger King, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I mean by that, for those of you who are not familiar, is, you know, Children's Hospital flyer, or some comparable fundraiser that goes out to the elementary schools, but doing fundraiser for the Ronald McDonald House that goes in every bag at the drive-through and goes as placemats on the trays. Whatever Burger King's current charitable activity is, same thing with Burger King. Fundraiser, same thing, that goes on top of the pizza boxes for Pizza Hut, for Domino's, for all the pizza delivery, is if you look at every place that does a lot of volume of people, is there's an opportunity to leapfrog off of their customer base and get them distributing the stuff for you. Yes, ma'am?
Has anyone been able to crack the Chick-fil-A?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Chick-fil-A is great. Chick-fil-A,
They're so easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually Chick-fil-A and Walmart are easy. And usually Costco is easy. Costco, make sure you're a professional member. But Costco goes way out of their way to make sure that their business members that they have like a magazine, they feature all kinds of stuff, that their organization value is to participate. Walmart is organizationally, they let Girl Scout cookies, Boy Scout, popcorn, everything set up in front of Walmart, right? Now there's a period, it's not like they're gonna let you do it every weekend. But Walmart, you've gotta be doing it as a nonprofit. So you've gotta be doing it as a fundraiser in one thing or another. And Chick-fil-A, they'll do all kinds of things, and they're very, very open to family stuff. But they have they used to anyway, have like a family night once a month, or I forget it was Tuesday, Thursday. But they'd let us come in and do everything from, ads that look like crayon, what do you call it?
Coloring sheets.
What's that?
Like a coloring sheet?
Coloring sheets. They'd let us do coloring sheets to hand out all the way to, standing at the drive-through next to their person who's, they have 3 people out in line to facilitate the traffic. We'd be the 4th, and we were making appointments as people went through the drive-through. And, they not only didn't care, they were like tickled to death because it was family day and they were letting us do stuff. Yeah, but see, there's all kinds of opportunities in that where you've got to think about it, who has a big flow of our student traffic. And sometimes it's impersonal, like McDonald's, where they're putting the coupon in the bag or they're putting the flyer on the tray. And sometimes it's personal. It's the orthodontist that's down in the same shopping center that'll mail a letter to all of their patients that they lined them up to have a coupon for a free month because they're so impressed with the value of this program that they wanted to gift their patients with $250 value of a month and a uniform that they've lined up if they want to take advantage of it, right? That would be, all of that would be, broadly defined as host parasite or host beneficiary relationships. But there's many, 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 many opportunities, right? I've done it where, the person who ran the Rocky Mountain Flag Football League, so they had literally 3,000-4,000 kids who did flag football every year. And at the end of the season, they'd mail a letter, and the letter would be, hey, in the off season, one of the most important things is cross training, and I'm so focused right now on kids having not only that, but focus and discipline and being immune to negative peer pressure, that I lined up for everybody in the Rocky Mountain Flag Football League to do a free month of lessons and get a uniform at my expense. So if you want to take advantage of it, here's the information, and give them a call and go do that, right? And so if you think of how many organizations, especially the seasonal sports, I mean, there's no reason in the world for them not to engage. Who's done a good job with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts?
I'm pretty good with Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
We do the Nutcracker, and then we line up like 15 troops to come to see the Nutcracker, and then walk backstage, etc.
Who had 11:30 in the poll?
50.
You know how you do the football poll? I meant to do the atom poll this morning. I was going to take 11, so I would have missed it. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, me still?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, so I take the, like, 15 Girl Scout troops, you line them up before, and, so we do 8 performances of Nutcracker, so we basically do 2 Girl Scouts per show, and they come and see the show, and you walk them backstage to see all the tutus and all the kids running around, and, you get the permission slips ahead of time, and then, like, as they're leaving, you give them a Nutcracker something or other, or, some kind of goodie bag, and in the goodie bag, it's like, a month or 2 free weeks, or whatever it is, whatever the offer is, and it does okay.
Yeah, yeah. With Boy Scouts, we've done the Boy Scout Jamboree, which literally many years we'd have so many leads. This is before, we realized that you could make appointments. We'd have so many leads, we'd have like 4 leaf trash bags full of little slips filled up with leads. It was one of those where you get so overwhelmed with volume that many of them probably never got around to them. We've done the what is it, pack and troop. Pack is the small one and the troop is the medium-sized one. So we've gone out to all the pack meetings and done stuff and done just like a PE teacher for the day, except you'll have the parents there usually. So we can actually, pass out permission slips, do the class, have the parents involved, dads and moms there, and then make appointments on the spot. We've gone to Boy Scout camps over the summer where they have everything from 5 kids at the lake and the park, all the way to Boy Scout camp like the YMCA camp where they have 2,000 kids that are all from the metro area there. So there's so many opportunities with that kind of stuff. And there's opportunities with the health clubs, there's opportunities with the gymnastics schools, there's opportunities with Boy Scouts, there's opportunities with Girl Scouts, there's opportunities with swim schools. What are some others? There's opportunities with, you just have to think about who's comparable. Who's a doc that deals with kids? Who's a dentist? Orthodontist, yeah.
Those are really good.
Yeah. But
people that work with your target market. If you work with a lot of adults, then, or you want to spend some time marketing with adults, which is not usually what you do, but those guys are the ones to work with.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
You have to go up and ask.
Yeah, the hard part is asking, it seems like.
Yeah, and that was being facetious because it's not hard, especially the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
Those guys, like Chick-fil-A's the funny one, Master Oliver. That's like,
They're out looking for us.
yeah, it's like 100% success rate. You go ask them. I mean, our success rate is 100%, so usually we never do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of irony of this. The ones that have almost 100% success rate are the ones that you guys probably never do. That's almost always what we end up hearing is, well, yeah, that worked so well, we never did it again. That's what happens again and again and again. Dean's nodding his head because that's what happens, right? The ones that work really, really well, we just, oh yeah, that worked so well, why don't you do it anymore? You don't really have an answer. But like Chick-fil-A is the one that struck me as such a big one to think about because that's like 100% success rate. They want us. Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and a lot of these organizations, when you talk to them, the mindset is, oh, I never thought of that. So when they don't think of it, then the success rate sometimes is yes, sometimes is no. The conversation needs to be a consultative conversation because they wouldn't have thought of doing these things before. So be good at listening to what they want, what's in it for them. They want to have, with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, it's activities for their members, for their kids, and you filling up time that they need to fill up in their schedule at their troop meetings, at their pack meetings, at their, for Boy Scouts in particular, like they have the Cub Scouts. So the young kids are really, really good targets for you. And they have pack meetings with the moms of the kids. So those are great ones to work with. And a lot of them will say, no, we got our things planned or whatever. Okay, well, next time when you come around to planning, then we'd be good ones to talk to. When are you going to plan your next set of activities? Oh, well, we plan those in whenever. Okay, great. Well, we'll talk then. Let's set up a time to talk then, not, oh, we'll get back to you. Whenever you hear the, oh, we'll get back to you, that's an error.
Yeah,
O will-
no
O
one's
will-
gonna get back to you.
Yeah, O will get back to you 100% of the time is an error. 100% of the time is an error. That's when you should be scheduling a time, getting something committed. So
Yeah.
that's a good rule of thumb to write down. O will get back to you. No, that's bad, red flag. That's when you should be scheduling a time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
let's
schedule's
go ahead and
super
schedule a
busy.
time.
I need to put it on my calendar, or else I'll just, it'll go somewhere, you gotta put it on the calendar.
Well, it's in their best interest. Yeah, you know what, I know you guys get really busy, so let's get some, that's when you guys get, we'll tentatively, and then you use your normal rule that Master Oliver's always teaching you guys. Let's get something tentative on the calendar, that way, and pencil it in, that way you can get back to us if it doesn't work. What's that?
Is there food out there?
It's gonna be noon. I checked with them.
Oh, I was up, as far as what time it is.
What time it is now,
It's
or
earlier,
what
but-
time the thing is
I've
gonna
got
be?
this really damn expensive watch that I can never read what time
That's why I have an Apple Watch.
it is. Yeah, I know.
We
I
have
like
a little
this
bit of
one
time.
better.
All right,
This one's doubled in value this year too.
congratulations.
Yeah.
Are you gonna sell it? Does that matter if you're not gonna sell it?
No, it's just a trivia point.
It's like when you buy engagement rings, they say, what a great investment.
Oh,
That's their sale point.
do they really?
They do say that.
What horse shit?
Yeah,
From
I
a whole
know.
bunch of different aspects.
Samples. Anyway,
I was
That's
gonna say,
another
one
story.
of our dance studios in San Diego, that is super,
The what?
that is super on, like, they go to the fairs, they do all the things. But one of the things that they did, the last couple of years is they literally have a card stapled to every piece of candy that every member of the studio hands out at Halloween. So like, every single member of the dance studio takes like a box of candies that they literally sit there and staple a card to, every single one. And the card is 3 free dance classes or, something like that. I don't
Sure.
remember.
yeah, we do that every
Yeah,
year,
we
something,
do that.
some version of that.
Yeah.
Says the girl who doesn't have enough candy.
Okay,
Says the girl who comes
so
home with
here's the deal, is we're going to put together, in 2 stages, marketing plan, October, November, December. It's got to be projected to create at least 300, not, where am I at? 100 net new students for the quarter. So it's got to create at least 100 net new students. A lot of you are already doing pretty well on search, pay-per-click. I put search as pay-per-click and SEO actually.
Well, those are two different things.
They
so
are.
We need to make
Yeah.
sure your website's good and.
That might be false though, is who in here feels like they're doing a fairly good job, blogs, podcasts, online content to create a broad reach locally, regionally?
Not me.
Who feels like they're doing a good job? Well, okay, so I stand corrected.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about that for a second. And this is where Rev does a really good job. Yeah. Search has gradually evolved over the years. And everybody knows what I mean by search engine optimization, right? I mean, this is, somebody sits down at Google and they type in a series of keywords, and it's like used to look in the yellow pages under the martial arts section. Now there's like 150 different derivations of what they might type, right? They might type some version of school, dojo, lesson, instructor, instruction. So
Drawing lessons.
yeah. So you take all iterations for school, teaching, instruction is one set of keywords. Then you take every iteration of some way that somebody might refer to martial arts lessons is another set of keywords. And then you take every derivation of how somebody might refer to their geography, right? They might say Seattle, they might say Queen Anne, they might say, what? Yeah, there you go. So every iteration of that type of stuff, right? That's one set of keywords of all the different possible permutations as well, right? And another set of keywords might be, simple cures for ADD, ADHD, and all the different types
Or
of things.
activities for,
Yep.
activities for kids.
Activities for kids, local activities for kids in Queen Anne, activities.
Or
for
not
kids
even
around-
in Queen Anne, activities for kids, because Google knows where you are.
Right, right. Yeah, do most people recognize that? Do they?
Yeah, most searches are not, most searches don't have the
Don't have
city name
geography.
in it anymore. It used to be really, or karate near me,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
near me, that's not as common anymore.
Okay.
The geography isn't it's not as common, it used to be really common, that geography was in the search term, now it's not nearly as common.
'Cause people
But we still,
recognizing that.
yeah, but when we build out campaigns, both organically and with AdWords, we include all that stuff.
But, so,
It's critical that in the search optimization that's in there, but it's not in the actual keyword that people search for.
right, right. So, where I was going with that is that search has evolved over the years to be where there are several things that are extremely important to get found. Most of them are volume, specificity, I guess, and recency of content. Specificity meaning content that matches the keyword they're looking for want of a better term.
Yeah, so you gotta have a lot of stuff that refers to the things you're selling.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Adam?
So the Google profile, kind of like the Google Facebook, I've got 1,400 photos on there. Is that good? Like,
Yeah,
You got
yeah.
100,000 views.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's good. I mean, the more the better, and all the reviews help a lot. So yeah, that's good. As long as they like you. I'm sure they do. But
Five star.
what?
200 negative, 105.
Say it again.
Good joke. It's 105 5-star, 200 negatives.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And that's the way to do it. Is you just bury the idiots. But the three components to oversimplify a little bit really is number one, you've got to have the website set up perfectly. Not perfectly, but you got to have the website set up so that it works best or works smoothly in mobile. And probably we're trending towards almost all search being mobile.
80% right now.
Yeah, yeah. And probably trending to 90.
Yeah, it's amazing how poorly most websites are with mobile. Even though everybody thinks they've got a mobile-friendly site, it's almost all not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
if a
and
guy
Google-
in your school is building it, or somebody you contract to build it, they're doing almost all I would venture to say 99% of the time, I've seen it when I look at that, because that's what I do with rep marketing. It's not
Yeah.
mobile,
Yeah.
built for mobile. Mobile friendly isn't the right thing. It's got to be built that way.
Yeah, but to keep it rather simple, it's got to load fast and be friendly on mobile. Okay, and then the balance of, and there's more detail to building the site, but those are two real big components that have become super big recently. And then the rest of it is about content. It's about blog posts, so written content, audio content, photos, and what am I missing?
Podcasts,
Yeah.
written content,
Audio,
blog
yeah.
posts. Yeah, audio and video content would be the big category of it.
Yeah.
Since Facebook changed the review system, should we even try to get Facebook reviews anymore?
Yeah,
They'll show
of course.
5.
Yeah, no, it's less useful than it was, but yes, absolutely.
So that would be
Um,
another category. So you got written content, audio content, video content, visual content, and reviews.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to include those categories.
But to simplify it here is, and how recently, so
Yeah.
if the last time you put anything up on your website was 5 years ago, is it's gonna push it down the ranking. If the last time you put something up was yesterday, it's gonna push it up in the rankings, right? And so what we have to start doing on our websites, especially if you're in an area that's competitive, right? So this is much more important for Ken than it is for Amanda. Because it's much easier for Amanda to like just own her area than it is for you, right? But you want to have content in every like way, shape, or form, but you can multitask that content fairly easily. Now, what you cannot do is, what we used to be able to do is, like with all the NAPNA content, I mean, hell, we have, I don't know how much stuff sitting in a warehouse down in Florida. If we could just take all the written content and just, give it to everybody and you go put it out everywhere, that'd be great. Except they tag you for duplicate content. So you can't go take the archive of stuff that you have that was somebody else's stuff and put it up if it's on a bunch of other sites, because they don't, they basically credit the original and knock off everybody else. Plus, nowadays,
Well, they'll blacklist you.
yeah,
Yeah, they'll blacklist you and you'll end up getting, essentially it's like plagiarism.
Yeah.
But in Google's terms, will blacklist you. And there's a couple pieces of that. One is we see people build duplicate websites.
Yeah.
And then they'll end up, that was a trick, right? In the old days, really old days, you could build multiple websites and it would all look like different companies.
yeah.
If you really want to simplify this, but it was really the same company.
So
So
in fact, we had software that would go. We had
a bunch of different
like
URLs.
1,000 iterations, and it would automatically generate the URLs and throw it
Right.
out there.
So you do a search on whatever, in our case, martial arts lessons, and it would show a whole bunch of things that all look like different companies, but it's really the same. It would all, end up routing to the same place. Well, Google figured that out pretty quick, and so that would blacklist you.
We had times when we owned the first 4 pages
Right.
of the major
Right.
search engine.
Yeah, and so, what they're doing that for, and it'd be great if we could trick them all, but then everybody'd be tricking all, and then it's a war of escalation. So what Google wants to be is they want to be, think about this way. Google wants to be providing good results for their customers. So they become they continue to be the best, most trusted search engine. That would be their job, so that they can continue to sell all the ads that they want to sell and AdWords and all the other things that they want to do. So there's a limit to the way that we can trick them, like we'd like to. We have to be more sophisticated about how we want to trick them. So in a sense, what Master Oliver's talking about is not tricking them. It's providing a lot of content, making sure that it's recent. So if you just leave it sit there, it's not going to be as important. Google's going to rank it less importantly.
Yeah.
And making sure that it's relevant to the topic that people would be searching for. Now you can expand that by having the content be more variety of content. So if you have podcasts, make sure you podcast a lot.
Yeah.
Add more content, add more photos, add more reviews. Do that, and then use that and push it out under other platforms from your website. But if you don't have
Without, yeah, go ahead.
Ideally, how often should you be updating your websites? And
It's not
should you be
updating your
it versus
website, it's
having
adding-
somebody update it?
Yeah, it's adding content to your blog. It's not updating your website, it's adding content to your website. So you have to have your website set up right first, and then make sure the technical stuff is done right, which most of the time it's not. Do that
Set up a
first.
time with Tracy and you, and
Yeah,
we'll do a
we're gonna
Thursday
do,
meeting.
yeah, we'll bring Tracy Thomas and and Tracy's the founder of
Let's
Rep
not go
Marketing.
Too far in this. rep-
Yeah, because otherwise we're gonna get in the weeds on this.
We'll do 2 hours on it.
Yeah. And we'll do it on one of our calls to
Yeah,
get in more detail
but to
on it.
summarize it isn't as difficult as all of this starts to sound. I can record my mat chat with a bunch of kids, video, or I can just put some staff members on a Zoom and talk. Or I can script and talk it, but most of us are really good at our subject matter and are really good at talking to a group, and sometimes are really bad at writing the script and really bad at reading a teleprompter, right? Is that a fair description? So just put your staff on a Zoom meeting or record all of the mat chats that you have, right? And then if you have a recording of a mat chat you did, or you have a recording of an hour talk with your staff.
Motivational talk.
Yeah, you can go to rev.com, you can have there's a bunch of others, but that's what we've been using. You can go to rev.com, have them transcribe it. They do a machine transcription plus a human being looks at it, and by the time it's back, it's pretty good. And what you can do is you can take the video and do a YouTube channel. You can take the video and do a video podcast. You can take the audio track off of it and you can do a podcast. You can take the transcript and have it as a blog. and then you can hand it off to a ghostwriter and have them clean it up and make it into a real article, because the talk isn't gonna read like it's an article. You can turn it into a real article or a series of articles and then have it be a blog post. You can also take all of that kind of written description that you have already about your program, and you can put that up as blog posts on the site, right? But really, you can get, from one video recording, you can get a video channel, plus a YouTube channel, you can get a podcast, you can get a post up tying into the podcast or the transcript, and then you can hand it off dirt cheap to a ghostwriter who will clean it up and make it a nice article. And now, you know, if you did that once a week, you've got like a lot of content going out in relative terms.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
And eventually that can roll into a book, and eventually you can roll it into other stuff. And
I know Travis Cook has been doing a great job of that.
Travis is a really good example. Amanda's doing a good job. And Marty Callahan's now doing a really good job of adding podcasts. We're just trying to get him to turn that into other content and do the rest of it.
Amanda, how much content have you been generating and putting out?
I usually do about 2 or 3 YouTubes a week.
Yeah.
And then I'll do a leadership lesson typically on Monday and upload that to YouTube and then send out a text message with that link.
Yeah.
But you're putting it on your podcast, aren't you?
I have been negligent for the last 2
So
months.
you
But
need
I
to
did
put on your.
that on the podcast, and then, you know, the article, like you're saying, I had a transcription of what the message is and the
Right.
podcast on the website.
Yeah, you need to put it on your podcast and YouTube, but then link them to your podcast, because you want the traffic to come back to your website. Yeah, so be careful about that, the order and the hierarchy that you want to do, because you want the traffic back on your website, and you want, and the other thing is to make sure, we need to make sure that all your platforms get the podcast on all the platforms. I think you're on Apple too now, right?
Right.
Like Master Del Castillo, you're on Apple and the other platforms and stuff too. So the podcast then gets pushed out on other platforms. It starts to get complicated. We'll do a session on the whole
Yeah,
thing,
but
because otherwise it ends up getting complicated, I think.
Yeah, but to summarize it is search has become about having the website set up properly, about making sure your Google Places.
Yeah, Google My Business. It's called Google My Business.
Now, yeah. So the Google My Business page is set up properly. And then it's about content. And the content, video, audio, written, and photos. With photos being the least important and written being the most important.
Well, you can think of reviews as the 5th piece.
Yeah,
And
that's
reviews would be the, so don't forget reviews, because reviews is the one we have to have bitch.
Right.
One thing I would add, just to wrap everything up, if you don't do that, and then you focus on paid marketing only and driving people like the lead pages only, remember, anywhere from 40 to 80%, depending on the type of marketing you do, like your offline marketing, 80% of people are gonna look you up. So if you don't do your search properly and your website properly, you're losing a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
So like, for example, if you didn't pay attention to this and you did a lot of offline marketing, you'd be losing a lot of traffic. If you did, let's say, Facebook marketing, our current numbers are 42% of your traffic is then going to look you up, even if you did really good Facebook marketing. Some of you guys, you know who I'm talking to. And you're losing 42% or maybe more now are gonna look you up. So you're throwing money away if you don't do this. This is really foundational stuff.
Well,
So-
I've heard the number 80% of soccer moms are gonna go Google you before they come in.
Right, well, it depends on like, if you're looking at your Facebook, you have your Facebook feed, to be fair, if you're looking at your Facebook feed and the ad shows up and you click on it and you go to a lead page and fill it out, you may only be losing about 40% of that traffic. So it's somewhere between, our current number is 42% of that traffic
On the
will
other hand,
still
if
go
you're
look you up.
at the Boy Scout Jamboree, and they're interested, it probably trends towards 80%.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, and, or a lot of the other stuff that we're telling you, 80%. So you do all this extra work because you didn't set your website up right and you continue to do this content stuff,
But we'll
you're
come back to
throwing
this
money
later.
away. But
But
yeah, we'll do a
move-
session
moving.
just on that.
Moving along is the other thing that's probably slipped in the cracks, that a lot of us were really good at it pre-COVID, is really doing a good job on referrals and really doing a good job on family add-ons. And my argument of family add-ons is that it's really simple if you do two things. The first thing you do is you make sure you have family classes and adult classes. You don't have kids classes and adult classes. And then what happens is every kid who takes an intro, mom and dad are coercively encouraged to join in, meaning assumptively, I just tell them they are taking the class with their son or daughter. And they say, oh no, this is just for him. Oh, I know. You'll just, you'll get a better sense of what this is all about, and he'll feel more comfortable, or she'll feel more comfortable if you go ahead and jump in and take the first couple of classes. We'll make sure he or she gets to know everybody in class, and they'll feel comfortable. But we want all the parents to take the first couple of classes just so you get a sense and they feel more comfortable. And by the way, here's your uniform, right? Yeah, you'll get about 80% compliance. And my number was always between 50 and 60% of every kid that I enrolled had one or both parents enrolled with them, right? But it's Father's Day, and I'm passing out Father's Day gift cards to everybody in the school. You get a couple. But it's not like you all of a sudden end up with half or 60% of the kids have a parent or both parents, right? It's really got to be the way that you get the parents added on is they take the first couple classes with them. And then if they don't, at the folder conference or having the conversation, and I would always, if they wouldn't enroll then, is I'd give them a free pass to take lessons until gold belt, and just get them on the floor, and almost never do they drop out at that point, okay? And by the way, the objection isn't the money. In most cases, the objection is they just are scared to get on the floor. They're too out of shape, their knees are too bad, they're, one thing or another. But once they get on the floor, then they love it, right?
So
Yes.
are they actually doing the stuff with the kids, or we're splitting them off?
Well, thank God Master Smith isn't in the room right now. You're not teaching an adult class and a kids class.
I'm not splitting.
No.
One set of curriculum.
Yeah. The reason I say that humorously but for real is, with his schools and with Sterling, it was established so long they had black belt teachers coming out of their pores. And so every class to him is the 3-4 years olds are over here, the 7-year-olds are over here, the 30-something-year-olds are over here, and so.
And then
None
there's
of that
two other
works.
Private lessons going on.
No. We are. This room has, you're sweating or you're shivering.
Two S's.
Yeah. It has sweating or shivering. And by the way, all the data shows that shivering is better for paying attention and being alert.
So we picked the right one.
Yeah, so we're better off we should. You haven't lived till you've been to one of Danny Kennedy's meetings. He only picks hotel rooms by the fact that they have double the normal refrigeration. I've actually shown up to meetings with a parka and gloves, just to be a smart ass. You cold, Oliver? I haven't put the gloves on yet. But he would say that each table is a pod and they're all split out because he has instructors, always had instructors coming out of the house. And what difference does it make? But what happens is when he talks like that, there's always somebody here, and well, I can't do that because I don't have a bunch of instructors coming out my butt, and I only have one person teaching a class, and therefore I can't do that. But see, the psychological dynamic is a lot different. And the idiot instructors that I've had that miss the point, like my staff, what they would do is they would pull all the moms over here and have a cardio kickboxing class. Then they'd pull the dads over here and do a hardcore hit the bag workout combined with a kick-ass, here's how you kick them in the balls, and here's how you punch. They'd have that class. And then over here, they'd have the real curriculum, and over there, they'd have romper room.
Right.
And they would teach every group like they were completely different. And my argument is, with the exception maybe of the 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, is everybody can do just fine, and none of the parents are irritated by doing the same thing their kid is, because that's why they enrolled with a kid to begin with, right?
And my argument is that the 3, 4, 5-year-olds do just fine with the serious class too.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm not-
I don't treat them like ever.
I'm just saying if you have the little ninjas or Rangers class, whatever, that's fine as long as your mission is to get them prepped enough to mainstream them
Yeah,
into the class.
you get them prepped though by teaching them serious martial arts always.
Right.
You don't get them prepped by romper room ever, and watch the instructional webinar on that.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the form though, like obviously adults are gonna memorize that a lot faster, 3 or 4-year-olds not gonna be able to
Not
memorize that.
necessarily.
You just say, just do as much as you can, and then adults are, you guys are memorizing this. Show your kids the form at home later on, is that how you're running that then, or?
No.
Yeah.
Adults may memorize intellectually faster, although I would argue that point too.
Exactly.
But kids are gonna look a heck of a lot better, a lot quicker. And it does offset each other. And if you really wanted to, the average 12-year-old is gonna learn better than the 3-year-old memorizing and better than the 28-year-old on anything, right? But the mistake we make is thinking, one is that you have to pull the parents out and teach them something different. But the whole point is to have the same curriculum for everybody, and having them do the same thing at the same time, and letting them go home and practice together on doing the same thing, right? And by the way, it's a mythology that the moms would prefer to be doing cardio kickboxing than they would prefer to be doing traditional martial arts, because once they get into it, they like the traditional class every bit as well, and the traditional class is designed to keep them to black belt, and the cardio kickboxing is designed to keep them long enough until Brazil butt comes out, and then they go do Brazil butt, and then the next thing comes out, and they go do that, right? So I forget what all of them were, but they jumped from jazzercise to kickboxing to Brazil butt to something else, right?
If we don't have this, how do we start?
You just reprint the schedule, and everything that says kids now says families. And the next intro that comes in, you put mom and dad into class and tell them that they take class with their son or daughter for the first couple lessons. Then when you sit down and do the enrollment, you suggest that they enroll with their children. And I like, tuition-wise, I like having the family structure. And I'll freely admit I was convinced of that by Bill Clark. It took him a long time to convince me. But we've been doing for a long time now, which works a lot better, is full price for one child, or it's full price times 2 for a family, however many is in the family. And I don't mean, you got the Hispanic family and all the cousins and everybody, no, I'm talking about, mom, dad, and the kids.
Nuclear
right?
family.
A nuclear family, living under one roof.
You actually have to tell them.
What?
In my school, you actually have to tell them.
Well, no, I'm being serious, right?
In everybody's school, you have to tell them, Gustavo. In everybody's school, no, it's not in a certain area. There's always outliers that you tell them.
Yeah.
No, it's everybody's school. You have to be clear on the rules.
Yeah.
So that's not an outlier.
I would just back that when we first told us that and we did it, that was one of the most significant changes for us.
Yeah. And the transition is super easy, as he said. Print the schedule out on Monday, kids equals family, and that's it. And then every new person, you just treat them that way.
But I still have an adult-only class too, right?
That's fine.
You can
That's
keep
fine.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but to finish the psychology is.
But the curriculum, sorry, Master Oliver, but the curriculum would be the same.
Right.
Repeat that, I'm sorry.
The curriculum's the same.
Yes, sir.
Well, and to be fair, some people have the adults only Muay Thai class or whatever. That's a different conversation. And then the kids are learning Taekwondo. Yeah, I would argue I'd rather have everybody in the school doing the same curriculum, not have multiple things going on, and it's all one thing. But that's a different conversation. But the psychology is adult 27-year-old coming in who wants to learn MMA. and you put him in a class with 12-year-olds, that usually doesn't work out very well. However, 8-year-old coming in and mom and dad are going to take class, mom and dad are just fine with being in the same class. They're just fine with 3-year-olds being in the class, and they're just fine with everybody does the same thing.
Do we tell them on the phone that they're gonna take class?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I always say, and Ms. Jones, one of the things that we want to make sure is we always have parents take the first couple classes with the children. In fact, about half of our kids have one or both parents, or maybe a little bit more, have one or both parents who take class with them on an ongoing basis. But we want to make sure that you and his dad take the first class or two, because that way he'll feel more comfortable and you get a better sense of what it's all about. So just dress comfortably. In fact, we have uniforms here. We'll size you up for the uniforms, but just kind of plan on that, right? You know, because I mean, every now and then you have the mom that comes in the short skirt and stilettos and, you know, and one thing or another, and then excuse with my plan.
Right now, I think I need help with my scheduling, because my white yellow belt classes are so packed.
Yeah.
I could hardly fit new people on, and I couldn't fit parents on.
What a horrible problem.
I know, but I just need to change, somehow re-look at how I'm looking at the
You
schedule.
probably need to merge some of your more advanced students.
Yeah.
Classes. What I'd suggest is set a time next week with Master Smith.
Okay.
He and I are both really, and you too, I'm sure, but he and I are both really good at schedules, and he really loves them, and I really hate them, so. Schedule a time with Master Smith. They've been the bane of my existence for years. Oh my God, somebody's gonna be bitchy about this, which, let's see. You know, I always at least try to have, you know, like afternoon time, evening times, you know, 6:30. Everybody wants to come in at 6:30. They all want to come in at 8:30, and they don't want to come in at 3, and then you're trying to balance them down. Then you're trying to figure out, you know, what time the latest schools in the area get out, because it can't be before they get out. You got to have a 15 minute. Set a time with Bob. Yeah. But to finish on this thought is, I rarely see anybody who has hit their potential on this. And it makes all the difference in the world on retention and renewal. Mom or dad being in class with the kid makes the renewal easier, makes retention
I
easier.
think it helps enrollments too.
Yeah.
If you follow what Master Oliver's saying, it helps your enrollments, because now when they're engaged in the enrollment and they're not like checking on their phone, although if they do that while you're doing the enrollment, we tell them to stop.
Yeah.
But if they're not checking on their phone and they're engaged in the enrollment, it helps your enrollments. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. And then the other thing that a lot of you are really good at until social distancing hit and all that stuff was at referral events and activities. And some of you have gotten back to that, others haven't quite hit stride yet. Would you agree with that? Yes. And so really getting back to referrals, and again, it's great that I have the enrollment packet and I give them free guest passes for their friends and I give them, you know, all of that stuff in the enrollment packet. But the guest pass thing mostly doesn't work with a ship, right? Just keep that in mind. What works is at every step you're asking, you know, who's Joey's best friend at Scouts, since you mentioned he does Scouts, who's his best friend at school, who's his best friend in the neighborhood. Certainly he would enjoy and feel more comfortable with their friends coming to class with him early on. If you'd like to bring him to the next class, feel free to do that, you know, no charge, but it might be great if they wanted to continue on and do this together. You know, having that conversation through the enrollment process. And then we know after that, the number one thing that works for referrals is what? The events. You either have an event where half of your students bring an average of 1.2 people apiece, or you have an event where one student brings 30 friends. An event where one student brings 30 friends is birthday parties, pizza parties, stuff like that. And the areas where half of your students attend is things like ninja nights, buddy nights, board breaking days, parents' nights out. I mean, the list is so long, I never, you know, come up with more than about 5, but you get the
try to
idea.
have at least one of those a month, maybe 2.
Yeah, and ideally in full swing, I'd say you have 2 or 3 but targeted at different groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a thing for the moms, you have a thing for the dads, you have a thing for the little kids, you have a thing for the bigger kids, right? You know, even adults only schools, or predominantly, like Eric and I always did, UFC Fight Night at Woody Wild Wings. And they would rent out the top floor, and everybody brought a friend, and they would end up with a bunch of referrals doing UFC, Fight Night at Woody Wild Wings. Now, that's not a kid's activity, but it's an adult version of a pizza party, right? So there's all kinds of different iterations of that. But again, we don't have to delve too much into that right now probably, but most of you have had some really successful things with that. But who would say you got out of the habit over the 18 months?
Well, and it's hard to get in the habit unless you do plan ahead.
Jason?
So for October, so we stopped classes on Saturdays when the pandemic hit, we're just doing Monday through Friday. What we're planning on for October and November is we're just planning every pizza party, birthday party.
Yeah.
We're gonna have 4 of them every Saturday until we have classes starting again in January. And we're just gonna try to get as many birthday parties and pizza parties every single weekend from here for the next 2 months.
Yeah. And,
I love it because I call them, oh, your kid just had a birthday party or birthday in July.
Yeah.
So who is that? Well, school's starting up, and Seattle school starts late, right, end of September.
Right.
And so we're saying, hey, well, this is gonna be great for his confidence. He's just starting school,
Yeah.
so invite all of his classmates. Let's get him in there. I wanna build his confidence. He's gonna have a lot of fun. We're now charging him, we're raising our price. We're now charging $500 for a birthday party. We wanna just give this to you guys.
yeah,
Oh, it's amazing. And then they get their kids, friends in from the school. And we wanna make sure, because some of them will say, oh, we'll invite all the kids from karate. No, we wanna get it from his school.
Right.
To build his confidence so that his classmates see him doing something confident.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's great. And notice what Jason just said is the worst thing to do is stack yourself up with a bunch of brown belt kids having birthday parties at the school. Because then they're gonna bring everybody else in the advanced class and they don't have any other friends that aren't in karate anymore. Right? I mean, we've done a few of those, it's like, oh, well, here's a wasted Saturday. But probably the number one I've ever seen in my life, you'll remember Steve Doyen when he was cranking at Top, is he was doing like 60, 70 enrollments sometimes from birthday parties. And truth be told, it was from outbound telemarketing, direct mail, and all the things, but all the leads were coming from birthday parties, right? And it was like Chuck E. Cheese at his school all weekend. And he had a whole team doing birthday parties, and it was back-to-back birthday parties, and it was all timed out. But the number one way that he was scheduling birthday parties was everybody who enrolled, they scheduled their birthday party when they enrolled, right? It wasn't put a banner up, hey, we do birthday parties, have announcements in class, hey, we do birthday parties. It was the minute they enrolled, you scheduled their birthday party, right? And frankly, then our iteration years later was the minute they enroll, you look at when their birthday is, and if it's September and their birthday is in May, you schedule your birthday party, but you also schedule a pizza party to celebrate their gold belt test. And you do a birthday party without it being their birthday. And nowadays, Frank, you can schedule a half birthday party, because that's a thing now. So you can schedule,
An unbirthday party.
yeah. You don't know about half birthdays?
No.
No, that's a thing now.
When they're 6.5, when they're 8.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, we have 2 birthdays and 2 half birthdays. I don't know when it started. It was a thing when my daughter, who's now 20, was in preschool, so a while. But mostly what they did is everybody who had a birthday over the summer, they would celebrate their half birthday in school rather than their birthday in school,
But yeah,
right?
because everybody was gone.
Yeah.
So you'd invite your friends and no one would show up.
Exactly.
So you're like, well, I'm doing this in
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
You got screwed.
Yeah, because hers was into July. Yeah. But again, just to summarize that, we know, other than asking them during the intro and enrollment, who's their friends, who would, but using isolate faces, who at daycare, who at scouts, who in elementary school, who in the neighborhood, right? Other than that, the primary way of driving referrals is events that are either birthday party, pizza party, or some comparable, Woody Wild Wings. So they all bring a friend or two, or it is something like Buddy Day, Ninja Night, Self-Defense Day, whatever, where a lot of people bring a friend. And having both of those things going on constantly, right? And again, I always had so many different ways of driving traffic that I didn't really consider birthday parties part of our Parthenon, except for the schools who just like, my schools who just like to do birthday parties, right? It wasn't like if I had one of my staff, the branch manager wasn't really into that, and I forced it down his throat, because we had enough other ways of doing traffic. I always drove it by, here's the 30 things you can do, and at least, if you're doing at least like 15 of them, if you're doing enough to drive traffic, I'm not gonna give you crap about which ones you're doing, right? And I was always spending enough money to drive it in, so even the moron guys, until I replaced them, could get enough traffic to keep them, rolling.
So corporately, you'd be doing like 10, and then they'd be doing 15, which would be more than 20.
Right.
Yeah, so just to make sure
But
you
you
guys are
gotta
clear
do
on the
that to
numbers.
support the
There's
moron.
there's 25 or more things going on in the Parthenon, 10 corporate, because
Yeah.
you had a bunch of schools, and then 50, that's what
Yeah.
I was providing X number corporately and X number
Right.
that they needed to do.
Exactly.
Do we want to get the?
On that note, what we're gonna do is, why don't we do this, is each table will be a group, and then once you two merge, and then we'll have you two merge, and then, how do we do this? You two merge and you two merge, how does that work? So, what we'll do is we'll do, food and restroom break, and we'll do a working starting with the idea. The outcome has to be 100 new students for the fourth quarter, net new students for the first quarter. And it has to include publicity, PR, it has to include host parasite, it has to include school outreach, and it has to include some real media activities, as well as direct mail. So it has to include those first 5, which I'm assuming are weaknesses. At least 3 or 4 of those areas are weaknesses for probably everybody. Is that a fair assessment?